Well, as I said at the top of the show, electricity and power prices are proving to be the issue at the front of mind for everyone at the moment, both households and businesses. I've got to say the government doesn't seem to be listening though. They push on with their agenda, irrespective of the consequences for the rest of us. And that intransigence, I think it's going to come back to bite them when the election rolls around some stage in the next couple of years. We're here to have a chat about it is Queensland LNP Senator Matt Canavan. Senator, great to have you on the show. Now, both parties, political parties, have struggled with this energy policy for a long time, but how much of the current problem can we lay at Labor's commitment to green energy and all their other energy policies?
Well, look, Cory, there's no doubt the Labor Party have made a bad situation worse over the past year, especially their futile and counterproductive interference in gas markets last year, pricing the cap of gas. Gas prices are well over that now, almost double the cap that they so-called put in. That's been a complete disaster. Of course, at the state government level, Labor and Greens parties have been in power, and you'd probably lump Matt Kean in that category as well. And they've been pursuing these mad cap renewable energy policies. And all up, Australia has been installing solar and wind power at a rate 4 times that in North America and in Europe. We're advancing at a pace not seen anywhere in the world. And as a consequence, we've got some of the highest energy prices now in the world, and we're struggling just to even keep the lights on. This week has been very, very tight in New South Wales after the closure of the Liddell coal-fired power system. And you just do wonder how many more failed promises, how many more missteps can we take from our betters before there is an absolute revolution in this country and we toss people out who keep talking about green energy and nothing else.
Yeah, I think we've got to toss them out sooner rather than later because otherwise we're headed for a disaster. But Matt, where are these people getting their advice from? I mean, you mentioned, the US and Europe and we're rushing forward where they fear to tread, but we've even got circumstances where places like Germany are rolling back from green power and refiring up coal and nuclear power stations. That's happening in a few places around the world. So why aren't we learning from them?
Well, I think the primary place where advice is coming from is follow the money. And so we're often hear that the reason we won't install coal or gas-fired power stations is none of the power companies want to do that. None of them want to invest in a coal-fired power station. I mean, this is a bit like asking the banks, the big banks, what do you think the interest rate should be? I mean, of course, they're always going to want it to be higher. They want their profits to be bigger. And likewise, the big energy companies here, of course, want higher prices. And they're getting their wish by hoodwinking governments into saying, let's install lots of this green energy, which is not always on. And that leads to shortages in the market, the price spikes, and there's a lot of abuse of our electricity market to make that money. I think the other consequence here is that I see it up close that too many governments are just simply doing a poll. They do a poll and see what people want. And yeah, of course, people like the idea of solar and wind, but the problem is they're completely ineffective, and some form of political and their leadership needs to be shown here, where we take into confidence the Australian people and explain to them why we do need to go to where Germany and Japan and other countries are before it gets as dire in some of those countries and install power systems that actually work.
Yeah, I mean, you've got it there on your screen. For lower prices, you've got to keep coal open. But are we actually stuck on this path? I mean, how likely is it we're going to keep the coal-fired power stations open? We're not going to build another one. So how are we going to avoid the inevitable energy shortages?
Well, look, I have some hope that people are starting to wake up. I noticed that the New South Wales government is doing a major review of all energy policies. It does at least seem to be on the table there, putting off the closure of their Raring power station. And again, we were all told a month ago that Liddell shutting wouldn't be an issue, wouldn't lead to higher prices. Well, since then, New South Wales' wholesale electricity prices have been 80% higher. In fact, they're on track this month to have a record average price for the month of May, bigger than after the closure of Hazelwood, or even bigger than the winter last year, which was a terrible time. So it's been another complete failure on the part of those that think they know better about energy systems. And then look, you can just see what's happened. You spoke of Germany before. Everybody used to say there in Germany they didn't need to build a gas receival station because it would take 3 or 4 years, and by then we'll have renewable energy. Well, guess what? The Ukraine war came along and they built that receival terminal in 9 months. three times quicker than was predicted. And likewise here, if we actually got our act together and did upgrade our coal-fired power stations, built new ones, turned to nuclear, you can actually do these things a lot quicker than we're being told if you put your mind to it. Now, hopefully, we can put our mind to it before we end up with major blackouts or disruptions, because that's the other way. We go through the school of hard knocks, but that's very painful for all.
Well, we're coming up to that school now, Senator Canavan. Next couple of months, we're expecting 30% increases in the price of electricity. Do you think that's going to push people to the breaking point where they're finally going to say, the game is up, this is outrageous?
Well, look, I think, you're seeing that in what people say back to pollsters now, and I don't want this whole system to be run by pollsters, but the biggest issue for people clearly is how they pay their bills. And so any political party that can come forward with a policy that helps and makes it easier for people to pay their bills is going to do okay. And I just think hopefully on our side of politics, Liberal National Party, that's what we get back to focusing on. We're at our best when we focus on helping people in practical ways to make their lives easier and better. And one way we can do that is to get behind reliable power systems. Now, give Peter Dutton a lot of credit. He's talking about nuclear energy. That's great. But I don't think we can just leave coal and gas. We need to install all forms of power. A big country with big power needs, a big manufacturing sector. And there's never going to be one horse for all courses. And I'm not against solar and wind. We should invest in those too. But we should just not put aside any form of power, because the cost of that is that everybody pays more and we might not even be able to keep the lights on in any case.
Yeah, you said credit to Peter Dutton. I say credit to you, Senator Canavan, because you've been on about this. You've been warning us about it for a very, very long time. And your predecessor, Ron Boswell, was also onto it. So good on you. Well done. Thanks for joining me on Bernardi tonight.